Welcome to another edition of Imagination, the Awakening, where imagination is the key to living a life without limits. And today I have my guest with me, Charlie Collins. And not only is he a friend, but I esteem him as a professional and also as one person who has not allowed limitations to even influence his imagination. So, welcome, Charlie, and I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here with you, Stanley.
So, Charlie, the idea of today's show, the concept is, my being influenced by you and the aspirations that you bring into my world because you have not allowed sight or the limitation of sight to limit you. So, could you share a little bit about who you are as an author, a speaker, someone who has shared stages with some of the big names, but you've also influenced some of those of us with a smaller name, less known. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. So I am legally blind from an eye disease called Stargardt's, and it used to be called juvenile macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is a pretty well-known disease in the eye. They call it age-related macular degeneration for people like 70 and older. And then for anybody that got it as a child or in the earlier years of life, it's called Stargardt's disease, which is a form of macular degeneration. Now, I have four sisters, one brother, and back in the late 70s, we were all four, not all, but four out of six of us were diagnosed with this Stargardt's disease. And I was 9. And by age 13, I was certified or declared legally blind by the state of Connecticut, where I live still. And then the journey began of living life with really not good imagination for a long time. What happened was, Stanley, I believed what the doctors told me. I believed that my life was going to get difficult, that things were going to um, pile up over the years, and my opportunities and my potential was going to be very limited due to my legal blindness. And they handed us paper that told us, like, it was a sheet with several items on it. Oh, color was going to become difficult, never going to be able to get my driver's license. What? uh, you know, I'm not going to be able to see faces, not going to be able to ski anymore. Got to limit what sports I do. So basically, they unloaded a pack of lists of things that I wasn't going to be able to do. Actually, all four of us, and thankfully, um, that wasn't the case. But it did. We talk a lot about imagination and vision, and all I remember was they took my vision from me. Now, I know today that that isn't the truth, because I gave all the power to my imagination, creativity, and vision of my life to a little eye disease in the back of my retina, in the back of my eyeball. So, um, I gave the power to that. So if I did dare to imagine a brighter future or a potential for Charlie, I shut it down and right away. And I remember, no, I mean, through till I was 23, Stanley, and I was cutting the lawn at a local motorcycle dealership, and I did that because I had a dirt bike. And I rode a motocross bike, and I rode in the woods and on tracks, and I was really good at it.
Wait,
And how
wait,
people, huh?
second, 1 second. You were riding a motocross bike at 23, and you're blind.
Well, I'm not blind.
Okay,
What I am is legally
legally blind, which means that you shouldn't be on a vehicle that can potentially go over 40 miles an hour in the woods.
blind. Oh, a lot over 40.
Okay,
I,
all right.
I started, Stanley, at probably 7 years old, 6 years old on a mini bike,
Okay.
and then mopeds, and then scooters. But I always then it when I was about 19, I got a dirt bike, bought my first one. And I took it all down to the frame, the motor. I rebuilt it. I put a bigger piston and rings in it. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just did it.
Okay.
And but did I see a potential there? Did I imagine, wow, you have some maybe some skill sets, you have some talents, you have some abilities? No, I didn't see that. I just did. I remember my dad coming down going, wait a minute, you did I labeled every bolt with a piece of masking tape and a Sharpie where it went. I had no idea. I didn't even think to just screw it back in after you remove the part, put it back into the frame so it's there. Never thought of that. So anyway, I was out writing all the time because I was good at it. Now, how did I do that? Well, imagination, vision, feeling, and perception, and all this stuff kicked in automatically. So I would ride the area over and over and get the feel for it, get the shading, have the proper gear. And I got faster and faster. And it really pissed off my sighted buddies when the blind guy was on their tail and they're ready to pass them,
Right.
which was quite, it actually felt pretty good. So anyway, this guy came out and asked me, oh, I used to cut the lawn at the motorcycle dealership, and I did it for credit so I could get spark plugs, oil, and things. Because motorcycles, dirt bikes, especially, you got to maintain heavily because you're beating on them. And he came out and asked me if I wanted a job there. Now, I often went there and looked at the long line of toys, and I would be driving a Yamaha tractor, cutting the lawn, and I would slip into an imagination like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to work here, to be around this stuff? I had a love for engines, for speed, for power, for risk taking. I had this desire, and I didn't know where that was coming from. And I used to think, what a curse. You're legally blind. You're never going to be able to be that jet fighter pilot or race cars or be a cop or a private investigator. Your life is going to be pretty terrible. So, but every so often I'd be on that tractor and I'd fall into an imagination and I'd shut it down. No, you can't go there. Why would you ever think that something so big is possible for a guy that's legally blind? See, I thought my eye disease robbed me of my mind's eye. I mean, I didn't know I was thinking that, but what I thought was what I couldn't see outside of me limited everything. I had no idea there was a world within me, back then. So, this guy offers me a job. And my first thought was, why would he ever offer a legally blind guy a job? What is he thinking? I will fail. And then my next thought was, how did he know? Deep down below, when I keep stuffing it deeper, I would love to work here. I would love it, but I can't because I'm not good enough, smart enough. I'm blind. I only have a high school degree. The stacking came out that shuts down the vision, shuts down that imagination. But thankfully, I took the job. And thankfully, my life changed. Thankfully, I accepted my eye disease. I asked for help. I introduced some accessibility, some adaptive technology in my life, and my life took off from that point.
So at 13, you were given the diagnosis.
No, at 9 diagnosis, 13, I got a certificate. And it was a nice big certificate from the state of Connecticut. Said, my name, Charles J. Collins, you have been declared legally blind. Yahoo!
Okay, say that age one more time. I just want to reiterate that. The age that you were told that.
13.
13. So your brain wasn't even formed at 13, and now you're filling it with all these thoughts that, yeah, rightfully so, it would rob you of that ability to imagine, because that's the age when we're starting to think about all the fun stuff that we're going to do. Now your whole world is upside down by well-meaning people that really had they went by a book rather than by a character.
Yeah. Yes, they did, and I bought into all of it, and I triggered that the as you know, we talk about it. You like to remind that when we release the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. I did not have automatic positive thoughts. If I did have a positive thought, it was quickly pushed out of the way. Like, oh, stop lying to yourself. But amazing is when you surrender, is when I shouldn't say you, but when I surrender to the madness that is this really the truth? I mean, is my life really that bad because I am legally now legal blind means 2200. And what does that mean? So, Stanley, 20 feet away from maybe a big letter A on a wall that I can see, you could be 200 feet behind me and
Okay.
see it just as well as I could at 20 feet. Now I'm about 2,500. So that means I'm 20 feet away and I'm seeing that. You, with normal 20/20 eyesight, could be 500 feet and see it as well as I can. So what does that mean? Does that mean that my imagination, because when I hit 40, my eyes took a turn and they got worse? Does that mean that my imagination and the visions I hold and my mission, does that mean those are gone since my eyesight declined? I should just give up? No, that means I should hunker down and really dive into the imagination. I mean, it's amazing.
So at 23 now, you are working for this motorcycle place. Give me, and give our audience, because I know that there's somebody listening today, and there is no specific level of the listener. And I want to say this, and I want to preface it this way: I have talked with first graders, and I have talked with CEOs of major corporations, and I've talked with people that have gone from one company to another that have been a CFO and walk in with an imposter syndrome because their mindset is limited and their imagination has been snuffed out, and they feel like they made a mistake by up leveling. And I would like for you to share how you up leveled, and that turning point, that defining moment at 23 when you went from mowing grass for credit to get spark plugs and oil and accessories to now working for the company, and then eventually where that led you to, because I know you've shared it with me and it's been an amazing journey. But I just wanted to preface that there is nobody that is outside of this possibility. There's no one that's exempt from this. And your vision that you've shared with me is clearer, and this is why I preface the this talk, this inspiration. And it's more than just inspiration. It's deeper, it's character rooted. Of, here's somebody that has taken a limitation and used their imagination to accelerate beyond that. So about that, would you please?
Certainly. So my belief was I had now the cards were stacked against me. I'm up against a world that in this dealership it was not lit well. It was it just it wasn't vibrant. It wasn't an environment for low vision or blindness of any sort. Now, I don't want to really market the fact I can't see too well and I'm selling motorcycles, jet skis, actually boats. I'm selling snowmobiles, generators. I'm selling all-terrain vehicles. I'm selling all that stuff. Well, I mean, can you imagine the guy I said I would like to put you in our sales department? I'm like, what? I mean, what are you kidding me? Well, he's like, well, you have a passion and a drive, and just when you come in shopping and all, there's something about you that we would like to bring into this company. And I was like, I don't see that, but thank God that he believed in me. He said, I mean, I came in, Stanley, after like a night of finally, in this bed, I slept for many nights and I cried myself to sleep. Or the nights I would look up to the higher power that I was no longer in contact with. And I would say, please take me. You know, I mean, what is up with this life you have made me suffer in? And I giggle because that was left to my own devices and self-will run riot. So I that night I slept beautifully. Something changed. When we're at the jumping off point in life, I see, it's jump, go, keep going down, blotting out the intolerable existence and pretend and, get sicker, or wow, let go of the and take some, just surrender. I'm surrendering to control. I think I have, but I really don't. And then my life started to change. I go back into this dealership and I said, I'll take the job, but you got to know I'm legally blind. I really was saying, what are you thinking still? And he was like, oh, I could tell that there was something going on with your eyesight. Now, he never knew, but he didn't know the level of my eye disease. He didn't know anything. He said, but I believe in you. And I mean, tears almost came to my eyes. You believe in me? I don't believe in me. I needed that more than anyone could imagine in that moment. Because he believed in me, I eventually started to believe in me because I started doing little things, moving the needle towards what's possible, towards squashing those ants, towards a positive thought followed by a positive action creates a positive feeling, which generates more positivity. I'm like, oh, it does work. And, I became $1 million salesman. And then in 3 years, I was the VP and part owner of that dealership. Was that my imagination? No. I didn't want to, I didn't know. I didn't even, that was outside the realm. Stanley, you know how we work with people and they have a lot of knowingness. Like they know already. Oh, I know what to do. I know this. I know that. I know. And since you know, but you're not doing, that's where we want to help you because there's a disconnect there, a malady. And I didn't have knowingness of success. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what ownership or leadership, I didn't know. But the only thing I knew was what suffering was. That was my knowingness. So as I stepped into this new world, I didn't judge or I didn't put limits. I just kept moving forward. Fear was not keeping me stuck because I was using a a reading machine that made my print big. People would come in my office. I'd be selling a $20,000 deal, and they would be saying, "What is that machine?" I said, "Oh, that helps me see." Back then, there wasn't. We would handwrite our contracts and all, and I would say, "This helps me see the paperwork and keeps me, everything." Oh, that's cool. They never said, "I'm not buying a motorcycle from you because you're legally blind. I'm not buying this boat from you because you can't see." They looked past something I could never get past.
Mm.
They didn't see me as a blind guy. They saw me as a guy that was helping them fulfill a dream of theirs, buy a boat, a motorcycle, or an ATV. And I started seeing myself differently. I left that business. I, you know, just I left and I started a new company. I now have self confidence. I now have this drive that I had no idea was possible. And Stanley, when I left, I didn't really know, but I was not, I couldn't do that anymore. Something happened where I, I really wasn't making an impact in the lives of people. So here's the deal. I surrendered. I accepted. I asked for help. I introduced some equipment into my life and I had the biggest transformation of my life. And something in me wanted to do that, help people in that way. And in the motorcycle business, sure, I wasn't, I was just helping a little, wasn't enough. And I needed to do more. So I remember leaving and I thought, I'm not really sure what to do. But what would it look like? Let me imagine a life that I could take this transformation I've experienced and give it to others, or at least show others it's possible. And then a thought came, I should open a store, a retail environment for people to come in and see the equipment that could help change their lives. And that's the power of imagination. I saw it before I had it. And then I opened this business a year later or so. And it was called Vision Dynamics. In 19 years, the company was in business. It won awards. It was Employer of the Year. It hired blind people. It hired people with other disabilities. It served government agencies, state agencies, walk-in traffic. My imagination, I would sit back and go, and I would drop into another. What else could I do to impact? I could do seminars. I've been to some. I could repurpose and do seminars and bring in information and education to people suffering with vision loss. And I mean, then I wrote a book. What? I have a high school degree. I did not. I went to 3 different colleges and I failed out of all 3 of them, but I didn't fail. I feared out of all 3 of them because I was in fight, flight, and sometimes freeze a lot of my life. And oh, Stanley, I'll tell you. And then me write a book. It's called Tripping into the Light. The light of what? The light of freedom. The light of the life I lived of the bondage of myself. Shut down my imagination. No real vision, purpose, meaning, all that stuff. And then I released that and did the work that was required to start living in the light. I got lots of lights on right now, but this is not the light I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking the light of imagination,
Right.
of what's possible in here.
That's amazing, Charlie. So, as a speaker, you've also shared, and this is not about name dropping, but it is about sharing what the possibilities are through a different perspective, and not allowing our perceived limitations and not allowing other people to influence what our limitations can be. And I think that there's so many well-intended people that buy into a myth that somebody else knows better. And I think that if you use what you perceive as somebody else knows better, if it's in a positive manner, then use it. If it's in a negative manner, then challenge it. And I don't say reject it, because it is when you challenge something, if somebody says it can't be done, if you challenge it, now you're empowered. You're not defying, but you're challenging the possibilities. And this is one of the things that everybody drops the line about Thomas Edison and the 10,000 tries. And he says there was no failure. They were just ways that it couldn't be done. He figured out that it couldn't be done that way. And then on the 10,000th try, he gets what he got, the light. And, that resilience that you've expressed, for 10 years, you bought a lie that was really for someone else. That's what they would have done. That's how they would have responded. That's how they would have expected it to be explained if they had been given that diagnosis. So they communicated their insecurities and their idiosyncrasies onto you as a young developing adult. And you thought, well, they're wearing a white coat. They know more. And it took you 10 years to challenge that and figure out and discover how much more of you was still in reserve. I think that's amazing.
Stanley, and that it's still that way. I mean, the whole the from diagnosis to what's next with eye disease. Eye diseases is big. It's big. And I was blown away. My company would I mean, I didn't think I was going to become $1 million company, let alone a $2 million company helping people suffer. I mean, it's like, what is going on here? And
Right.
uh, so, but what it was people would come in that be 78, 83 years of age, and they would say, it's over. I can't read my Bible. Back then it was a TV guide, but I want to read the Bible, the TV guide, and my mail, and I can't anymore. I'm losing my independence. I'm suffering. I'm feeling alone. I can't stand this, and my eyes seem to be getting worse. That was a tough customer because they had a belief structure that
Right.
they now have cycled over and over, and they believed that to be the truth, which it wasn't. And I would say, are you open to the possibility that I can show you a way to achieve those things in your daily life? They would say, yeah, right. Okay, I guess so. I'd say, but I'm just asking for the crack the door of willingness and don't have any judgment. Just sit back and let me create an experience for you. And I would show them how they could read their mail. They could handwrite. They could even take a device and put mail on it, and it would take a quick picture and read it to them word for word. They could put bump dots on their microwave so they could find the buttons. They could put proper lighting. They could, in their house, they could transform their living environment, their work environment, their school environment so they can succeed. And I love doing it because I remember being that person saying, there's nothing that can help me. I'm not using that dumb stuff. I don't want to be blind. So I'm going to pretend I'm not. And I don't want you to ever talk about it and just try to accept me. But the problem was I didn't accept me. So I constantly had that narrative that they don't accept me because I don't accept me.
Right.
And but this is how I grew the company, by doing that, teaching the people that work for me. I ran summer camps for the blind kids. I ran seminars. I had trainers going out and training in home how to bring this life back. And I sold the company, gosh, in 2016. I only did it because I wanted to do more. I was an international speaker. I'm bringing this message out. I saw that the system that was creating the path for people with blindness wasn't that great. So I wanted to make a change. Now, I don't want to change this massive state and government system. I want to go straight to the families. And then, imagination. I want to build a company that has training modules and addresses the harshest points. Did you realize it's a 76% of blind people are unemployed? Why? Is it because they're dumb? They can't work? No. It's because they have a structure, they have a state, they have a belief system that they believe the biases and perceptions that it's harder for them. Now, that is true. And maybe because of that, they're going to shine even more in other areas. At least that's the truth in my life. Heck, I think I'm looking at a camera. I don't know. I'm looking in the direction of them, but I don't see a camera. I'm not even looking at the screen to see how handsome you look today.
Imagination flaring up. Thanks.
So anyway, Stanley, I love that you're doing this. I love that we've been chatting a lot and holding each other accountable, forming ideas, challenging some thoughts, bringing frustrations of family and of life, and talking things through, helping each other see what we're not seeing in a problem. And I think that's what people need in life. It's like when I get locked into a problem, I'm not seeing what's outside the tunnel vision I have of that problem. But as I present it to you, you help me see what I'm not seeing. And it allows me to say, oh, is it possible the person really didn't mean to hurt you? They were having, you know what I mean? And we go through those things. And I see this in the blind community. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of drug and alcohol addiction. There's a lot of obesity. And that isn't because they're blind.
Right.
And so I was present in the morning, and I happened to start listening to another gal who was on this call we were doing that you were on. And it's like, What are those crazy people going to do during that COVID thing? Well, let's jump on a call every morning and talk about what's possible. And Kristen, who I then approached to form a company called the Thriving Blind Academy, a place, a community where people can come and face their demons, warts and all, where they can step into a program to help them move from college to the workplace, high school to college. Do you realize that 85% of blind people, and blind means me too, so limited sight, that they go from high school to college, 85% of them drop back out of college. Why? Because they don't have a system in place to succeed. They will once they go through our program. Do you realize that in business, people go for one interview, they get denied the job, and they take it personal and don't try again? We have an interview program. Do you realize parents? Well, I'm not going to say anything mean, but parents do more damage for their vision impaired children than serve them by enabling. Enabling is disabling. They do for those kids what those kids can do for themselves. So those kids start to feel, as they go out into the world and get older, I'm a victim. I deserve stuff. I'm entitled to a better life, and somebody better do it for me. Oh, don't come into my academy like that, because we will squash that line of thinking quick. Because I know, as you know, in each and every person is the possibility to live out their imagination and their dreams. But we need to help them tap back into that and believe it's possible.
So you have the Thriving Blind Academy, and is that a place that people could go to, thrivingblindacademy.com, or what is it? What is the
.org. But
dot?
you're right. Thriving, yeah, it's a nonprofit, 501c3.
Fantastic, fantastic. So your imagination went from what was communicated as a limitation, and then once that imagination woke up and it awakened within you, it inspired you to own a company, own a couple companies, do some wild, crazy things. I've seen you kneeboard behind a boat, and I've seen you on a ladder with a power trimmer, and a power washer, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this guy does stuff that sighted people and people that think logically, and that's the beauty about imagination. It's not always about logical. Imagination is so illogical, and we celebrate it when our kids are young, because they bring us a crayon full of a paper full of crayon, and then they tell us what it is, and we can actually see it. And as you matured mentally, physically, and spiritually, you awaken that within you, and you've done things that you probably couldn't have imagined in that 10-year period from 13 to 23. And by grace, you have been given the opportunity to exercise your imagination. And as I was alluding to before, not about dropping names, but I know one of the things that you've shared with me is that you went to a conference with Jack Canfield, and you went as a participant, and that transformed into you actually sharing the stage with Jack Canfield. That
Mo-
in itself is an amazing feat. Share a little bit about that, would you?
That was not in my imagination when I was going, because this is stepping out. Now, again, my knowingness. I didn't know there was a world of personal and professional development. I mean, I went through the motorcycle business. I didn't read a business book. I didn't read uh, self help or personal growth. I didn't even know that world existed. I find that funny now. And then one day in my next business, I met somebody who like said, "Hey, have you ever read Who Moved the Cheese?" I'm like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." And it was a Ken Blanchard book, I believe. And then I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember thinking, this whole new world started opening up. And then I saw self-esteem. I'm like, what is self-esteem? Oh, and it's kind of the story and how you think about yourself all day. Oh, oh, and that yeah, I wouldn't mind checking that out. And I ended up at a Canfield conference. It was self-esteem seminars, which turned into breakthrough to success. And I didn't realize I was successful at that time. My company was doing well. I had a team, but where I wasn't successful was in the next plateau of spiritual freedom, of that light, of how to handle problems, situations, tough customers, how to handle lines that took a long time. I used to get irritated easy. But don't you know who I am? I'm a successful blind businessman. Get out of my way. And the world changed, Stanley, because my imagination at that conference, he said by the end of the week, it was 7 days. By the end of the week, we're going to bring 2 people, 430 people in the audience. We're going to bring 2 people up on stage to share their story. I'm the only blind person there. There's 430. I still didn't I was not completely freed from the bondage itself. I still carried some of the negative baggage. I still had negative thoughts. I still believe the lie sometimes that you're better than me. And maybe you were at playing the guitar, but not as a person, but something happened. I went back to my hotel room and I'm thinking, I'm going to be on that stage. I started seeing myself walking up on it and I could see myself turning. So I would walk back and forth. Oh my gosh. In Scottsdale, Arizona, my room was huge. It was in August when it was like 300 degrees in Arizona. So the prices were good. But I remember pacing, Stanley, back and forth and talking and turning to the audience. I don't even know where this was coming from. Then I get back in the room. Don't do that. Stop pretending you're ever going to get up on that stage. And then it would kick in again. I'd watch Jack go up and I'm in the front row, they let me sit right up front and he would be in front of me. And I felt him staring at me, speaking to my soul. He talked about my struggles. I'm like, how does he know me? He didn't know me. He knew the human condition and he knew how to serve. He knew how to help bring people on a transformational journey. And I was hook, line, and sinker in that thing. And I got on there was like a half an hour. There was a big jar and they had little index cards for you to write why you should be a person to go up on that stage. And I said, well, I can't do it because I can't write small. Oh, think of every excuse in the world why you should keep yourself limited about on what's possible. So anyway, I said, that's it. I'm just going to do it. I ripped a page out of my notebook and wrote with a black Sharpie pen. This is why I think I could serve your audience. And I don't remember exactly, but it was, I'm legally blind. I'm working my ass off to become a better person and help more people. And I'd like to share that with your audience. And Jack picked the first guy and he was an orthopedic surgeon. And he was an alcoholic and drank himself into a stupor. And he was in his house with a big knife held between and pushing it into his chest, wanting to end his life. His wife left, took the kids, lost his practice. His life was over. It was riveting. And I was like, wow. And then everyone went berserk and they gave him feedback. And then he called the next person and he said, Charlie Collins. And I went, my body started to, wait, I was in a group. They said, that's you, isn't it? And I said, no, it better not be. I'm not. That guy was amazing. I could never go up on stage. But you see all the work I did that week, every day, of my imagination, of seeing myself, of practicing, of going through the motion, of turning in my room, talking to the audience. that I was up on that stage. My knees were shaking, and all of a sudden I was able to do something. And at the end of my talk, I mean, the place stood up and gave me a standing ovation, and it released more of my blocks, just that energy. It was like, wait a minute, I can do this. Now, whew, and then I ended. They gave me feedback. I was a nervous wreck, pacing. They said, maybe pivot and walk a little slower. I'm like, well, I fast? And anyway, Stanley, where it ended, where today, to this day, that was in 2007. To this day, people I know still remember that I pretended to, when I went to walk off the stage, the stairs were on the front of it and on the side of it. Well, I walked off from the stairs and I walked to the edge of the stage. And right at the end, I stopped and like jolted my body like I was going to fall. And they all went, "Whoa!" And I said, "Gotcha." And then I walked off the stage. And well, how does that come to you? I never took speaking classes or how to disrupt, gain attention, and really make an impact. People still talk about that talk. I couldn't even tell you what I said. It was brought to me through the spirit, through the universe, through the God of my understanding, whatever that might be. But and then I did the work to keep building on that since that day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So this is the amazing stuff that you bring to your academy. So you're not teaching theory. You're teaching practical, experiential life lessons that can be transferred to anybody that will apply them.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody that is exempt from the teaching that you do at thrivingblindacademy.org? Is there anybody that's exempt?
No, but I mean, there's people that aren't ready, that aren't willing to take a risk and step into what's possible, and they want to come in and tell you why it's not going to work and all that. Then they're get out. But but the door is going to be open for you. I did that in my store. People would say, "No, nothing here. You can't help me. I am blah, blah, blah." And I'd say, "You're probably right. So let me help you back to the door. You may leave. And if that day comes, we're here. But you got to take a little risk and just open the door of what's possible." And that's what I did. That was a big risk, but to where I am now, I mean, I still need to do that, Stanley, because when I step out of my familiar comfort zone, which is pretty advanced at times, like I got a lot going on, but I want to grow from that. It's a never ending. It's like I want to step and learn or do or be or hang out with you and be with certain people. Well, I've got to now take a risk. I got to open that door of what could be possible. I got to drop into imagining and start to visualize or whatever that system is where you start to see yourself and bring, what does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it sound? And and bring that in, and I can then all of a sudden I'm already feeling the way I want to feel on that stage, or when I'm bringing that person from denial to acceptance. I can get to that space before that event has happened, and that doesn't come just by doing it, comes by practice. And Stanley, I do I mean, yeah, thank you. I mean, this is why I do this. I need to continue to practice these principles in all my affairs. And I can't keep it unless I give it away. And give it away means through programs, through memberships, through speaking engagements, through my book, Tripping into the Light, and through what's next. I don't know, but the doors will appear. And you talked about Jack Canfield, and I just want to share, like you said, name dropping. Like, Jack Canfield doesn't make me a better person. His teachings helped me, but him as a person, he's a guy, and he's funny, and he's a great guy to be around. He wrote the foreword to my book, and his 10th anniversary to success principles, I have a story in there. So I'm now a published author in his books. And back when I was 19 and even through my 20s, did I imagine I was going to be a best-selling author? Imagine I was going to share the stage with Jack Canfield? No. But as I continued to step into what was possible, my imagination grew.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Charlie, I want to thank you for taking the invitation to share your imagination, because this information really needs to get out. And the energy that you put, and Kristen, and I want to bring Kristen on here as well and do a show with her, maybe even the three of us. It's taking the troubles and the trials of our past and turning them into our platform of success, and also bringing other people up with us. And this is why I say that imagination is the key to living a life without limitations. And when I'm working with people, as I hear you saying here, over and over and over again, is that it's only in your mind that you create the roadblocks. But if you can open your mind to the imagination just as well as the roadblocks, you can actually achieve so much more than what you think is possible. But when you use your imagination, you go from cutting grass to earn spark plugs to owning the place to earn cash. And not only cash, but relationships. And that's really what I know you're about. You're about relationships, and you want to, in a quick synopsis, you want to infuse in others what it took you a little bit of time to discover, and help them to get the fast path, or a faster path than those 10 years that it took you. And only through somebody else's experience can we minimize the amount of time. So thank you, Charlie. Is there any last words that you'd want to share? Or
I find it funny that I'm one of the only blind guys that helps people see more clearly.
yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you for being here, Charlie. Again, if you want to get a hold of Charlie and his organization, it is thrivingblindacademy.org, and be sure to check that out. Get a hold of Charlie, get a hold of Kristen, and trip your way into the light and make an impact on someone today. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.